My daughter sold my mother's heirloom to impress the woman who ruined my marriage, so I let her face the life she chose, and its cost. I never thought my own daughter would sell my mother's memory for 30 pieces of silver. Until she did. My name is Evelyn Moore, I'm 52 years old, and I work as a librarian at our small town's community library. For the past 3 years I've been rebuilding my life after my husband left me for a woman who calls herself a life transformation coach. Though I prefer to think of Veronica Hayes as simply the woman who destroyed my marriage. The divorce was messy, painful, but I survived it. What I didn't expect was that the real betrayal would come from my own daughter, Chloe. She was 19, starting her freshman year studying communications at the state university, and she was everything to me. After her father walked out, we'd grown closer, or so I thought. We'd spend evenings talking about her dreams, her classes, her future. She wanted to be a journalist, to tell stories that mattered. I was so proud of her. But something started changing in the months after she began college. Our phone calls became shorter, more distant. When she came home for visits, she seemed different, more critical, more impatient with what she called my outdated thinking. She'd make little comments about how I needed to evolve and stop living in the past. At first I thought it was just typical college-age rebellion, the natural process of a young woman finding her own voice. Then she started mentioning this person who was teaching her so much about real life. She never said who it was directly, just referred to someone very wise who was helping her see things differently. The way she talked about this mysterious mentor made my stomach turn, though I couldn't put my finger on why. The first real warning sign came during Thanksgiving dinner. We were sitting at our small kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped her with homework for years. And she looked around our modest home with what I can only describe as disdain. "Mom," she said, cutting into her turkey with unnecessary force, "don't you ever want more than this? Don't you want to actually live instead of just existing?" Her words stung, but I tried to stay calm. "I'm happy with our life, sweetheart. We have everything we need." She laughed, but it wasn't the warm laugh I remembered from her childhood. "That's exactly the problem. You've settled for enough when you could have so much more. Some people understand how to really seize life." I should have pressed her then, should have demanded to know who was filling her head with these ideas. Instead, I told myself she was just going through a phase. College kids question everything, it's part of growing up. But deep down, I felt something cold and uncomfortable settling in my chest. The real blow came 2 weeks before Christmas. Chloe called me, her voice unusually sweet, almost manipulative in a way that immediately put me on guard. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important. Can I come over?" When she arrived that evening, she looked different somehow. More polished, wearing clothes I knew she couldn't afford on her part-time job income. Her makeup was perfectly applied. Her hair styled in a way that seemed older, more sophisticated. She sat across from me in our living room, in the same spot where she used to curl up as a little girl to read books. "Mom, I need your help with something," she began, her hands folded in her lap like she was delivering a presentation. "My tuition payment is coming up, and I'm short about $15,000. I know that's a lot, but I have an idea." My heart sank. Money had been tight since the divorce, and $15,000 might as well have been $15 million. "Honey, I wish I could help, but you know I don't have that kind of money just sitting around." She smiled, and something about that smile made my skin crawl. "Actually, Mom, you do. Remember Grandma's pearl necklace, the one she left you?" The words hit me like a physical blow. My mother's pearl necklace. A strand of genuine Mikimoto pearls that had been in our family for 3 generations. My grandmother had worn them on her wedding day. My mother had worn them to every important event in her life, and they were supposed to be passed down to Chloe someday. They were the only thing of real value I had left from my mother, who'd passed away just 2 years earlier. "Chloe, that necklace? It's not just jewelry, it's our family history. It's all I have left of your grandmother." "But Mom, what good is it doing just sitting in your jewelry box? Grandma would want it to be used for something meaningful, right? My education is meaningful. Think about it. I could sell it, pay for school, and when I graduate and get a good job, I could even buy you something similar to replace it." The logic was sound, but something felt deeply wrong about the whole conversation. The way she spoke about my mother's necklace like it was just a commodity. The calculated sweetness in her voice. The fact that she'd clearly planned this whole approach. But she was my daughter, and she needed help with her education. How could I say no? I need to think about it," I said finally. Of course, Mom, but the payment is due next week, so we'd need to act pretty quickly. She reached over and squeezed my hand. I know it's hard, but sometimes we have to make sacrifices for the future, right? I spent 3 sleepless nights thinking about it. I held that necklace in my hands, remembering my mother fastening it around my neck for my own wedding day. The way she'd smiled and told me I looked beautiful. I remembered her wearing it to Chloe's christening, how she'd insisted it would be Chloe's someday. But Chloe was right about one thing. What good was it doing sitting in a box? My mother had always valued education above material things. Maybe she really would have wanted her great-granddaughter to use it this way. I called Chloe and told her yes. The process of selling it was heartbreaking. I had to take it to 3 different appraisers, each one handling my mother's precious necklace like it was just another item to be evaluated. The final offer was $14,800, almost exactly what Chloe needed. I signed the papers and watched a stranger walk away with the last physical connection I had to my mother. When I handed Chloe the check, she hugged me tight. "Thank you, Mom. This means everything to me. I promise I'll make you proud." For a few weeks I felt good about the decision. Chloe seemed happier, more affectionate during our phone calls. She talked about her classes with renewed enthusiasm and even mentioned joining the campus newspaper. Maybe selling the necklace had been the right choice after all. Then I saw the Instagram post. I wasn't much of a social media user, but Chloe had insisted I follow her account to stay connected. Usually her posts were typical college fare, photos with friends, food from the dining hall, scenic shots of campus. But this post was different. It was a photo of Chloe wearing a designer dress I'd never seen before, standing in what looked like an expensive restaurant. The caption read, "Celebrating another incredible semester. So grateful for all the amazing people who've taught me what it really means to live authentically." Some people talk about dreams, but others show you how to make them reality. #blessed, #living my best life, #inspiration, $14,000 for tuition. But she was wearing a dress that probably cost more than I made in a month, and eating at restaurants I couldn't afford. I felt sick to my stomach, but I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she'd gotten the dress secondhand. Maybe a friend had treated her to dinner. I was probably overreacting. But then came the second post, 2 days later. This one was a quote card with elegant script over a sunset background. The difference between successful people and everyone else isn't talent or luck. It's the willingness to leave behind people and situations that don't serve your highest good. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones holding you back the most. Veronica Hayes. My hands were shaking as I read it, but I forced myself to keep scrolling through Chloe's recent posts. There were more quotes, more inspirational messages, all attributed to photos of Chloe at what looked like seminars or workshops, always impeccably dressed, always smiling that new, calculated smile. Then I found the post that made my blood run cold. It was from just the day before, a photo of Chloe and Veronica together at what looked like a coffee shop. Chloe was gazing at Veronica with obvious admiration, and the caption read, "When you meet someone who truly gets it. Thank you for showing me that I don't have to limit myself to other people's small thinking. Real mentors don't just give advice. They show you a completely different way of being." #mentorship, #transformation, #grateful. The comments were full of Chloe's friends asking who this amazing woman was, and Chloe had responded. To several, "This is Veronica. She's a life transformation expert and honestly the most inspiring person I've ever met. She's taught me so much about not settling for less than I deserve." I sat in my empty living room staring at my phone screen until my eyes burned. My daughter, the child I'd raised, sacrificed for, loved unconditionally, was publicly praising the woman who had destroyed our family. Not only that, she was using my mother's necklace money to fund a lifestyle that would impress her new mentor. But the worst was yet to come. 3 days later, Chloe posted a long philosophical caption that felt like a knife through my heart. "I've been thinking a lot lately about the difference between people who inspire growth and people who try to keep you small. Some people in your life will encourage you to dream bigger, take risks, and become the best version of yourself. Others will try to keep you trapped in their own limited worldview because your growth threatens their comfort zone. I'm learning to choose the people who see my potential over the people who see my past. Sometimes that means disappointing people you love, but you can't live your life trying to make others comfortable with your success. Real love supports transformation, not stagnation. The post had dozens of likes and supportive comments from her college friends. But I could read between every single line. She was talking about me. I was the person trying to keep her small, the one who couldn't handle her transformation. Veronica was the inspiration, the one who saw her potential. I had funded my own daughter's public rejection of everything I'd given her. That night, I called Chloe. My hands were shaking as I dialed her number, and I had to try twice because I hung up the first time when I heard her cheerful, "Hello, Chloe, we need to talk." Her voice immediately became guarded. "About what, Mom?" "About Veronica Hayes. About the posts you've been making. About what you've been doing with the money from Grandma's necklace." There was a long silence. Then, "I don't know what you mean. Don't lie to me, Chloe. I've seen your Instagram. I know you've been meeting with her, taking her advice, spending money on things that definitely aren't tuition." "Mom, I'm an adult. I can spend my money however I want, and I can talk to whoever I want to talk to." "Your money." "That was my mother's necklace, Chloe. The money from selling the last thing I had left of her. And you're using it to impress the woman who destroyed our family?" "Destroyed our family?" "Mom, you need to get over what happened with Dad." "Veronica didn't destroy anything. She just helped Dad realize he deserved better. And she's helping me realize the same thing." The words hit me like a slap. "Better than what, Chloe? Better than me?" "Mom, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did. That's exactly what you meant. You think she's better than me, more inspiring than me, more worth listening to than the woman who raised you by herself for the past 3 years. Chloe's voice turned cold, defensive. "Maybe if you'd focused on actually building a life instead of just wallowing in what happened, I wouldn't need to look elsewhere for inspiration." I almost dropped the phone. This wasn't my daughter talking. These were Veronica's words coming out of Chloe's mouth. "Building a life? I rebuilt everything after your father left. I worked extra hours to keep us afloat. I supported your dreams. I sold my mother's necklace so you could go to college. And I'm grateful for that, Mom, but gratitude doesn't mean I have to limit myself to your vision of what my life should look like. Veronica has taught me that I don't have to settle for good enough just because someone else is comfortable with mediocrity." "Mediocrity? Is that what you think your childhood was? Is that what you think I am?" "I think you're stuck, Mom. I think you've been stuck for years, and instead of trying to grow or change, you want me to be stuck with you. But I won't do it. I refuse to make myself smaller just to make you feel better about your choices." I hung up the phone and sat in the silence of my living room, surrounded by pictures of Chloe at every stage of her life. Birthday parties, school plays, graduation day. All the moments when she'd looked at me like I was her whole world. Now I was just an obstacle to overcome, a limitation to transcend. That's when something hardened inside me. I'd spent 3 years since my divorce trying to be understanding, trying to put Chloe's needs first, trying to be the stable parent while her father gallivanted around with his midlife crisis mistress. I'd sacrificed my mother's most precious possession for a daughter who now saw me as nothing more than a burden to be shed. But I wasn't just going to sit there and take it anymore. The next morning, I made some phone calls. First, I called the bank and removed Chloe from our joint checking account. Then I called the credit card company and canceled the supplementary card I'd given her for emergencies. I transferred the small college fund I'd been building back into my personal savings. Finally, I called my lawyer and had him send a letter to Chloe's university, clarifying that I would no longer be responsible for any of her educational expenses. I didn't tell Chloe about any of this. I just waited. It took exactly 12 days, Mom. "It's me. I think there might be some kind of mistake with my accounts." Her voice was different now. Younger, uncertain, no longer carrying that confident edge she'd developed over the past few months. "What kind of mistake, Chloe?" "My credit card isn't working, and when I tried to transfer money from our joint account, it said I didn't have access anymore. And the university called saying there was an issue with my spring semester payment plan?" "There's no mistake, sweetheart. I removed you from my accounts and discontinued your financial support." The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, "What? Why would you do that?" "Because you're an adult, remember? You can spend your money however you want and talk to whoever you want to talk to. You've made it very clear that you don't need my small-minded, mediocre guidance anymore. So I'm giving you exactly what you wanted. Complete independence." "Mom, you can't be serious." I need that money for school, for living expenses. I'm sure Veronica can help you figure it out. She's so inspiring and wise after all. Or maybe your father can step up and support the daughter he's been filling with advice through his girlfriend. This is insane. You're my mother. Yes, I am. And for 19 years, I put you first in everything. I worked 2 jobs when your father's child support was late. I stayed up all night when you were sick. I cheered at every soccer game and helped with every school project. I sacrificed my social life, my career advancement opportunities, and finally my mother's most treasured possession, all for you. But apparently, none of that matters because I'm not as enlightened as a woman who destroys families for a living. Mom, please, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, but... Hurt my feelings? Chloe, you took the money from selling my mother's necklace and used it to fund a lifestyle designed to impress the woman who broke up your parents' marriage. Then you publicly humiliated me on social media, calling me small-minded and stuck while praising her as your inspiration. This isn't about hurt feelings. This is about you making a choice about what kind of person you want to be, and me finally accepting that choice. I could hear her crying now, but I forced myself to keep talking. You want to transform your life? You want to leave behind people who don't serve your highest good? Congratulations, you've got exactly what you asked for. Good luck paying for it. I hung up the phone and turned it off. For the next month, Chloe called and texted constantly. First angry messages about how I was sabotaging her future and punishing her for growing up. Then pleading messages about how she was sorry and didn't mean to hurt me. Then desperate messages about how she couldn't afford her rent and was going to have to drop out of school. I read every single one, but I didn't respond to any of them. Meanwhile, I started hearing things through mutual friends and our small-town gossip network. Chloe had been forced to get a second part-time job. She'd moved out of her nice apartment near campus and into a shared room in a run-down house across town. She'd stopped posting those inspirational quotes and glamorous photos on social media. Most interesting of all, when Chloe had reached out to Veronica for help, after all, she was such an inspiring mentor, Veronica had suddenly become very busy and unavailable. Apparently, mentoring was a lot less appealing when it required actual sacrifice rather than just dispensing wisdom to someone else's child with someone else's money. My ex-husband called me exactly once, furious that I'd abandoned our daughter. When I calmly explained that Chloe had made her preferences clear and I was simply respecting her choice to seek guidance elsewhere, he sputtered about responsibility and obligation. I pointed out that he'd had 3 years to step up as a father and provider, and if he felt so strongly about Chloe's welfare, he was welcome to support her himself. He hung up on me, and Chloe's financial situation didn't improve. The real turning point came about 6 weeks after I'd cut off support. I was leaving the grocery store when I ran into Janet Chen, whose daughter went to the same university as Chloe. "Oh, Evelyn, I've been meaning to call you." Sarah told me what happened with Chloe. "She's really worried about her." My stomach tightened. "What did Sarah tell you? About how she lost her scholarship, and how some kind of story got out about her selling family heirlooms to buy designer clothes?" Sarah said the other kids are calling her fake and materialistic. She's really struggling, academically and socially. Sarah feels terrible for her, but honestly, a lot of the kids think what she did was pretty awful. I kept my expression neutral, but inside I felt a mixture of satisfaction and genuine sadness. I hadn't heard about the scholarship. Apparently her grades dropped significantly this semester. She was working so many hours to pay her bills that she couldn't keep up with coursework. And then when word got around about the necklace thing, well, you know how college kids can be. They don't have much patience for people they see as phony. As I drove home, I thought about Chloe losing her scholarship, struggling in school, being ostracized by her peers. Part of me, the mother part, wanted to call her immediately and fix everything. But the larger part of me, the part that had been betrayed and dismissed and publicly humiliated, felt that justice was finally being served. Veronica's reputation had taken a hit too. I learned from another friend whose sister followed her on social media. Questions had started arising about her methods and ethics when word spread that she'd been mentoring the teenage daughter of a woman whose marriage she'd helped destroy. Several of her corporate clients had quietly ended their contracts, and her social media engagement had dropped significantly. Turns out, even people seeking transformation had limits when it came to obvious moral hypocrisy. 3 months after I'd cut Chloe off, I made a decision that would have seemed impossible a year earlier. I applied for a position as head librarian at a university library 3 states away. It was a significant promotion, a chance to start completely fresh somewhere nobody knew my story. When I got the job, I put my house on the market and began planning my move. I was packing up Chloe's childhood bedroom when I found the letter. It was sitting on my front porch when I came home from work, written in Chloe's familiar handwriting on simple notebook paper. Her fancy stationery and expensive pens were apparently things of the past. "Dear Mom," it began, "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I understand why. I've spent the last few months thinking about everything that happened, and I finally understand how badly I hurt you. I'm not writing to ask for money or help. I know I don't deserve either right now. I just wanted you to know that I finally see what I did." The letter went on for 3 pages. She wrote about how losing her scholarship had forced her to confront the reality of her choices. How her friends had distanced themselves when they learned about the necklace. How Veronica had completely ghosted her the moment she needed actual support rather than just validation. "I realize now that Veronica never cared about me at all," she wrote. "She was using me to hurt you, and I was too stupid and selfish to see it. I let her convince me that your love was holding me back when really it was the only thing keeping me grounded. I traded a mother who actually sacrificed for me for a woman who just wanted to prove she could steal your daughter the same way she stole your husband the most." Painful part came near the end. I keep thinking about Grandma's necklace and how excited she used to get when she told me it would be mine someday. She wanted me to wear it on my wedding day, the same way you wore it on yours. Instead, I sold it to buy clothes that would impress a woman who doesn't even take my calls anymore. I turned our family heirloom into an Instagram prop, and I can never undo that. She ended the letter with, "I don't expect you to forgive me, and I'm not asking you to. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I lost, and it wasn't just your financial support. I lost the one person who loved me unconditionally, and I lost her because I was too selfish and stupid to recognize that love when I saw it. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to become someone worthy of the sacrifices you made for me, even if you never want to see me again. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry I forgot how to show it." I sat on the floor of her empty bedroom, surrounded by boxes and memories, and cried harder than I had since my mother's funeral. But I didn't call her back. 2 weeks later, I moved to my new city, my new job, my new life. I rented a small apartment near the university campus, walking distance from the beautiful library where I now worked. I joined a book club, started taking evening art classes, began dating a kind man who taught literature and had never heard of Veronica Hayes. 6 months into my new life, I got another letter from Chloe. This one was shorter, just a single page updating me on her life. She'd managed to keep her grades up enough to stay in school, though she'd had to take out significant loans to cover what her scholarship used to pay. She was working at a coffee shop and a tutoring center, living with 3 roommates in a tiny apartment. She'd started volunteering at a literacy program for underprivileged kids. "I'm not writing to ask for anything," the letter said. "I just thought you should know that I'm trying to be better, not for you, not to win you back, but because I finally understand what kind of person I want to be. The kind who builds people up instead of tearing them down. The kind who appreciates sacrifice instead of taking it for granted. The kind who would make my grandmother proud to leave me her necklace." She included a small photo with the letter. Herself at the literacy program, reading to a group of young children. She looked different than she had in her Instagram photos with Veronica. Older, more genuine, wearing simple clothes and no makeup, but smiling in a way that looked real for the first time in months. I kept the letter and the photo, but I still didn't respond. A year passed. I was fully settled into my new life, thriving in ways I hadn't since before my marriage fell apart. I had genuine friendships, fulfilling work, and a sense of peace I'd forgotten was possible. I thought about Chloe often, but the sharp edge of pain had dulled into something more manageable. Then I got a phone call from my ex-husband. "Evelyn, we need to talk about Chloe." His voice was different, humbler, less demanding than it had been during our last conversation. "What about her? She's really struggling. Not just financially but emotionally. She's been in therapy, trying to work through what happened, and her therapist thinks it would be good for her to have some kind of contact with you. Not money, not support, just acknowledgement that she still has a mother." I was quiet for a long moment. What do you think, Michael? I think I failed her. I think I was so caught up in my own midlife crisis that I let Veronica manipulate our daughter the same way she manipulated me. And I think you were the only parent who actually acted like a parent, even when it was hard. This was not a conversation I'd ever expected to have with my ex-husband. Veronica's gone, by the way, he continued. Left town about 6 months ago when her business fell apart. Turns out people don't want life coaching from someone whose own life is built on destroying other people's families. I don't know where she went, and I don't care. And how are you handling that? He laughed, but it sounded hollow. About as well as you'd expect. Turns out, when you blow up your life for someone and then they disappear the moment things get difficult, you're left with a lot of regret and not much else. We talked for another few minutes, and before he hung up, he said something that surprised me. For what it's worth, Evelyn, I think you handled this whole thing exactly right. Chloe needed to learn that actions have consequences, and she needed to understand what she'd lost. I should have learned the same lesson, but I was too proud to admit I was wrong. 3 days later, I made a decision that would have shocked the woman I'd been 2 years earlier. I wrote Chloe a letter. My dear daughter, I began. I've received your letters and I want you to know that I've read every word. I've seen the photo of you with the children, and I can see that you're trying to rebuild yourself into someone better. I'm proud of you for that work, even though we're still apart. I told her about my new life, my new job, the peace I'd found in starting over. I told her that I'd needed this time to heal, to remember who I was outside of being someone's wife or someone's mother. I told her that her betrayal had nearly broken me, but that ultimately, it had also freed me to discover my own strength. I'm not ready for us to have a relationship again, I wrote. The trust that was broken isn't something that can be fixed with apologies or time alone. But I want you to know that I never stopped loving you, even when I couldn't stand to be around you. Love doesn't mean accepting betrayal, but it also doesn't mean closing the door forever. I ended with, keep working on becoming the person you want to be. Keep helping those children learn to read. Keep making choices that would make your grandmother proud. And when you've truly learned to value the people who sacrifice for you instead of the people who flatter you, we can talk about what comes next. I mailed the letter before I could change my mind. Chloe's response came 2 weeks later, and it was different from all the others. No dramatic declarations, no elaborate apologies, just a simple thank you for not giving up on her completely, and a promise to keep working on herself. We began writing to each other occasionally, not regularly, not with any expectations, but as two people slowly learning to know each other again. She told me about her therapy sessions, her volunteer work, her slow progress toward rebuilding her life. I told her about my book club, my art classes, the satisfaction I found in helping college students with their research projects. It's been 2 years since I moved away, 3 years since I sold my mother's necklace. Chloe graduated from college last month, a semester late because of her academic struggles, but she graduated. She sent me a photo of herself in her cap and gown, looking genuinely happy for the first time since she was a child. She's working at a nonprofit now, helping teenagers from difficult backgrounds prepare for college. She lives simply, drives an old car, shares an apartment with 2 roommates. But she's building something real, something that doesn't depend on other people's money or approval. We still don't talk on the phone regularly, and I haven't seen her in person since the day I moved away. But we write letters, and sometimes she sends photos of the kids she works with. In each picture she looks a little more like the daughter I raised and a little less like the stranger she became. Last week she sent me something that made me cry. A small package with a note that said simply, "I saw this and thought of Grandma." Inside was a small pearl pendant, nothing like the elaborate necklace I'd sold, but beautiful in its simplicity. The note inside said, "I know this can't replace what I cost us, and I know I can never undo what I did. But I wanted you to have something with pearls again, something that could maybe start a new tradition instead of continuing an old one." I had it engraved. I turned the pendant over and in tiny script it read, "Love means sacrifice. E.M. to C.M. I'm wearing it now as I write this, sitting in my small apartment that feels more like home than anywhere I lived during my marriage. Through my window, I can see college students walking across campus. And I think about Chloe at that age, so confident she knew everything, so certain that wisdom could only come from people who told her what she wanted to hear. I learned that love doesn't mean accepting betrayal, and that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is letting them face the consequences of their choices. I learned that rebuilding yourself after betrayal isn't just possible, it's necessary. And I learned that real transformation doesn't come from people who promise to change your life overnight, but from the slow, difficult work of becoming someone you can respect. Chloe learned those lessons too, but she had to lose everything first to understand what she'd always had. Sometimes I wonder if there was another way, if I could have handled things differently. But then I look at who she's becoming now. Someone who helps instead of uses, someone who builds instead of destroys. And I think maybe this was the only way she could have learned to truly value love over flattery. The pendant catches the light as I write, a small reminder that some things can be rebuilt, even if they can never be exactly the same as before. We're not the mother and daughter we used to be, but maybe we're becoming something better, two women who learned the hard way that real love requires real respect, and that sometimes you have to lose everything to understand what you actually had.